is not really always to be really agreed upon, in the sense that if the board is going to really say something, it's not that everybody has to agree to that. And therefore, there is no perfect strategy to anything else. And if you say a strategy, it has to be definitely aligned with a lot of debate and discussions, finally come up with the, let's say, the final strategy. If the board is not permitting you to do so, definitely that's not going to be at all healthy, because you do not have scope to debate and discuss. Now, if you see that, let's say the leaders, especially the C-suite officials, they try to really question the board. They say that we are going to do so, but many times they fail to really do that, because if they do so, they are going to be challenged and they are going to be punished, maybe sometimes. No, may not be so, but I'm saying most of the cases it happens like that. Therefore, they, rather than challenging, they accept it. Therefore, keeping that context in mind, our topic to discuss is that what if your strategy looks great because no one dares to question it? Now, that's the topic we are trying to really debate and discuss. My first question is going to be, whenever you are going to see that the strategy is going to be really effective in your mind, keeping your corporate exposure in mind, what is going to be an effective strategy?
That which is owned by the people because they made it and not because they were told it. I think that's the most effective or first rule of success.
The moment you say people, I mean entire organization.
The organization. So it has to be a grounds up. The vision can be set at the top, but the strategy has to be grounds up.
I think that's an important thing, the vision, because I was wondering when you said made by the people, and isn't there a risk that it is incremental? You know, they want to do more of the same. But vision
at the top, strategy from the bottom.
I'm just saying, you know, strategy should survive the technology shifts, geopolitical shocks, regulatory landscape, right? So strategy has to be built in with such, you know,
guardrails. So you're trying to bring the point of resilience.
Resilience, right? But also adaptable as well.
I think it's bringing another interesting dimensions. The culture is going to play an important role. The moment you talk about Tata groups, the culture is as such. No, they give freedom to the, let's say, your officials or maybe executives to really express their mind. But there are many such organizations, the firm, the small firm, something of that sort, or it is, if it is dominated by the promoters, many times they don't allow to really speak your mind, you know, and they take their own decision. That means they say that this strategy is absolutely perfect, you have to simply execute it. There is no chance to really debate and discuss on that, you know. Therefore, it differs from firm to firm and industry to industry, absolutely. It's not only that, the psychological behavior of the, let's say, individual, the people who are really in that particular leadership role, that's also going to play a role. How do you see that? To what extent psychology is going to play a role? How it is going to shape this particular strategy?
So I think I can just add a point here. This strategy, sometimes it looks like that, okay, it's a very top-end topic and possibly way less participation happens there. So one, I feel that, you know, while the strategy is formulated, it has to be understood at the lowest of your organization, and they should also have the buy-in that why we are doing it and how we are going to achieve it. So possibly the what we are going to do is answered at the top, but how and who part has to get downstream understanding and buy-in. So that I consider as an effective strategy where everybody is engaged and having the buy-in to execute and deliver the value for the organization.
I very strongly agree with what you say, because the vision has to be set by, let us say, a founder or the people at the top, because they are probably able to see the kind of trends and they are able to drive their organization in that particular direction. But for you to effectively execute to whom you are delegating and whether you have their buy-in. If you don't have their buy-in, then the second level leadership will not be able to give their 100%. They will see that as if we are not involved, you have not consulted me, and maybe that agency problem, the ego problem of those executives may come into the picture. That, okay, fine, I probably don't agree with your strategy and let us see how you execute. And then I was telling you from the beginning it's going to be a failure and stuff like that. So it's very important that how and who is also important apart from what.
To that point, when you said it triggered buy-in, you said buy-in. How do you get a buy-in? And there your psychology part comes in. Many times leaders, we talk about how great the strategy is for the market, for the shareholders, for the business results, but people want to know what's in it for me.
Correct.
Every individual needs to understand
Exactly
how is my life going to change, and if I'm going to put in extra effort or what's in it for me. That's the psychology piece. And we kind of assume that, hey, everyone is going to enjoy it because I created this strategy. If we can actually focus on that, we will get a lot more buy-in and therefore more success.
So I'll give you my example. So this is my real life examples I have gone through. See, I have been board member for multinational companies since 2008. These are completely professional companies. Now I have been part for the last 2 years, a board member of a Medtech company, which is a wholly owned subsidiary of a family-based business in India. Now I'll give you my thoughts or other experiences I'll share with you. This is little circumstantial. It is not, there is no one size fit all situation kind of. What I have seen in the past, when I was a board member of the companies which I represented, which are global companies, it was pretty much what the global board has driven down. That's a strategy you're supposed to execute it, right? So whatever board conversation you do is how to make it successful, right? Whereas when I'm working for an Indian company, my surprise, the pleasant surprise was the focus of the promoters. They have created a very professional board. Like the board that I have absolutely a professional board with me. The chairman is a former SBI chairman of that board. Similarly, the board of my holding company is also represented by significant number of professionals with diverse background, okay? The interesting part is here where the strategy, since I represent medtech business, medical device business, where strategy is not only looked at from a business standpoint, it's also looked at from a regulatory standpoint, the medical legal standpoint, what kind of risk we are owning, because we have incremental risk of medical legals, particularly if you are trying to look at India as a market versus US as a market or Europe as a market, developed and underdeveloped markets. So the conversation goes into looking at the incremental risk that you take beyond what the board has ordinarily seen in their regular course of business. And the same proposal beyond a particular threshold, like take it to the holding company board, the conversation is more about capital allocation. Because end of the day, how much capital to be put into which business, and it is a fair assessment to say that the one which will be giving me higher return and which has a higher potential for success, more money will be directed towards that. So basically, you will kind of invest. So it's not that somebody will come and challenge your strategy in the holding company board. Somebody will ask you the questions which are fundamental financial parameters, and you have to convince one, what's in for them as a board. Basically, when I am a startup, right? When I am building a company, I'm a startup. So I have to show where is my money, right? So that's a question I have to answer. That's a question I have to give them a comfort. And there has to be reasonableness in the argument that you build. I find that working here in this, actually, it is more of an alignment, whereas in the past, it was more of an intimidation. So if your question was whether it's an alignment or an intimidation, because you are actually following what you've been asked you to follow. Just go ahead and do it, execute it, right?
I think, so I mean, wonderfully explained, the whole shift from multinational to Indian and how you see. I think it's also when you are brought in, let's say you are brought in or you're appointed, even if you kind of grew up the ranks as a CEO. From the board's perspective, they are already with a certain understanding on what to expect from you. Either because you have a history which they are very privy to on how you have performed, what you are capable of, or because they've seen what you've delivered elsewhere and that's why they've brought you in. The issue comes when that understanding, either because of how you are driving it, starts conflicting with the original assumptions, or they brought you in because they thought it was the right thing to do, you're the right person, you've done this, but you know what? We don't think this is matching with our values.
Vision.
Is a generally a way
Absolutely.
to define that. And that's where you start either, I mean, while you talk from a groupthink perspective, I think it's like the CEO versus the board. Or the alignments are happening outside the boardroom is another thing. So when groupthink, it's like an extreme case. There's either conflict, there's groupthink, but there's a whole spectrum in between.
Very
and
true.
that is very dependent on how the people who brought the CEO in are thinking, and whether their thought process changed or their assumption when they got you into the role is going to be different from what originally was. And that spectrum, I think, is where the gray, it's like shades of gray. That's it over there, not the black and white.